Okay, so it's 2:03, so hopefully folks will still trickle in. Rozzet and I speaking before, I'm having some bandwidth issues, so I may turn off my camera when I'm sharing my slides or doing the formal presentation, but please feel free to jump in if my face fully freezes or something like that. But thanks for joining, I guess, the second session of the VPR's Tune In, Tune Up, where we'll be talking about the Regina Research Data Center. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Rebekah Corpuz, and I'm the analyst at the Regina Research Data Center. And also a part of this presentation today is our academic director, as well as being the department head of sociology and social studies, Rozzet Jurdi-Hage. So I'll let her just introduce herself briefly before I get started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. My name is Rozzet Jurdi-Hage, and I am a faculty member in the Department of Sociology and Social Studies. Presently, I am the department head, and I'm also the new academic director. I started with this position in July of 2023, so I'm pretty new. Many people ask me about what do you do as an academic director? So just let me give you a brief kind of overview. I report to the Associate Vice President of Research. I completed a security screening process to become a Stats Canada Dean employee. I run the operations of the RDC day to day and the financing of the RDC and the reporting of the financing of the RDC. And I promote the RDC to everyone. So in a brief, this is what I do. Yes, Rebekah?
Perfect. Thank you so much. And hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'll be giving most of the presentation today is how you can access the RDC. So just to get a feeling, I know I see some familiar names, but is everyone here familiar with the Research Data Center program? Any virtual hands or like that? I see some familiar names, but I know that even for myself, before becoming a staff at the RDC, I wasn't super familiar with the RDC program. And so what the Regina Research Data Center really does is it gives access to confidential microdata files that Statistics Canada collects. So if you've ever completed a StatCan survey, something like the census, or maybe a general social survey, this is the type of information that researchers can have access to. On the screen right now is just the range of information that you can get from StatCan. So this goes all the way from a self-serve tool, so something like the information that you can get from what was previously known as the CanSim tables that are publicly available on StatCan's website, and goes all the way to secure access, where the RDC sits on the very far end, where you have access to the actual microdata files. There are some also available options that you can access through the university, including public use microdata files, and those kind of sit in the middle. And we'll touch on those a little bit, and some researchers may be familiar with them as well. So what is an RDC exactly? So the Regina Research Data Center is a secure facility on campus that researchers can access those confidential microdata files. So these centers are physical settings at the moment, and we will be moving to a remote.
You're breaking a little bit, Rebekah.
Access program in the future. We're funded by major funding sources. How is it now?
Now it's better.
It's good now.
Okay. I'll just start off with this slide again here. But the RDC is a secure facility on the University of Regina campus, as well as campus sources, and in partnership with the Canadian Research Data Center Network, or the CRDCN, as well as partnerships with some provincial
still is breaking a little bit.
Governments that contribute funding is that Rozzet is a faculty. Are we okay now?
Yeah, the last thing I heard my name, Rozzet.
Perfect. So as Rozzet mentioned, as the academic director, she is faculty and staff at the university. However, myself and other staff at the RDCs are actually employees of Statistics Canada. So as I mentioned, the RDCs provide access to those confidential microdata files of Statistics Canada. So within the RDC, we have access to over 600 different data files. These include surveys, administrative data such as health or crime data, business data, and data linkages. We also have data linkages that can connect to tax files, as well as those business data, which can connect individual tax.
We apologize. There are some technical difficulties.
Removed and replaced by survey specific.
Rebekah, you're breaking up. Like when you started that slide, I think I heard you say the first part.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. The first part, I think we heard you, but the second part, when you're talking about the individual data.
Okay. If it's all right with folks, I can try to disconnect and reconnect, although I'm not sure if it is with my Statistics Canada laptop connecting to the university, but
if you want to do that, I have a, if you want to do that, I can share my presentation and talk a little bit about what I do.
That might help.
Perfect. Yes.
You share the screen.
I'll try and reconnect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If everybody just wants to take a minute break.
I can actually speak a little bit.
Sounds good.
Yes, I want to show you some stuff very briefly. I don't have lots to say. So I introduced myself already. Let me just swap. Okay, this way. I already introduced myself. Many people ask me about my job. What do I do as an academic director? As I said, I report back to the Associate Vice President of Research, Andrea. I am a deep employee of Statistics Canada, as would be any researcher who is accessing confidential micro data from the RDC. I'm responsible for the direction of the Regina RDC and its overall day-to-day operations, including the financial planning and the reporting. I link the Canadian Research Data Center Network, Statistics Canada Data Access Division, and the university senior administration together. So whenever there is anything going on, I am the one who provides the information and does the linkages. I represent the Regina RDC nationally on the CRDCN, which is the RDC network. So I represent our RDC in the Academic Council and during annual conferences or any number of events that are available for academic directors. More importantly than anything else, I am the one who promotes the Regina RDC to you of our members and to other communities. For example, we have talked to the city of Regina who were interested in accessing data. So we were the one talking to them, providing information to them, presenting to them to ensure that they have information available. In my promotion, I try to increase awareness of the RDC and the value of the data that is available there. I raise awareness about available data sets and promote the use of existing data sets, promote new data and new linkages. We have amazing linkages, as Rebekah will tell us soon about these things. And I as academic director, take a very active interest in the research that is being conducted at the RDC, but also at the files that are being introduced into the RDC. So I'm on top of this because I want to make sure to be able to help researchers and students when they have questions about what type of data is available in the RDC. I usually, what I do is customize, like whenever I contact people at the university, I make sure that the information that is getting to them is relevant to them. For example, I may contact colleagues in psychology and tell them, look, we have the mental health survey. So I do things like that so that the information that is getting to them from me directly is important to them or their affiliates or students working under their supervision. So you can see that the microdata is very rich and a variety of topics and subjects are covered. Some examples of data sets, and again, Rebekah will talk about this. There are a variety of data that is available that researchers can access, like the Aboriginal People Surveys, the Canadian Community Health Survey. In fact, the Canadian Community Health Survey has linkages too, so it's a very nice data, the General Social Survey, and much, much more. We have lots of data sets. I was going to write here more than 600 data sets, but I was very hungry. I ate the 600 here, it appears. Another responsibility, and this is brand new responsibility that I have as an academic director, I am the data access liaison. And my responsibilities under that include working directly with Statistics Canada to approve affiliated researchers who are accredited for secure room or remote access under the risk sharing framework. This is brand new. I will be the one when somebody applies, they're going to send me the information. I will need to verify that information. I will review requests to approve contract extensions that exceed the 5 years. So again, these are coming to me. I will assist Stats Canada directly with responsibilities and accountability of monitoring access to the RDC. And I will support Stats Canada and the Canadian Research Data Center Network to disseminate information to researchers, which I already do this part, but now it's also part of the data access liaison. So my job now has a little bit more direct involvement with the Statistics Canada. Before it was mostly I was working with the Canadian Research Data Center Network, and then they would be the bridge between us and the Statistics Canada, but now there is a more active role for the academic director with Statistics Canada. Thank you for that. I was going to say all of this after Rebekah finished. So if you need additional information regarding the Regina RDC, you can find us in Research Drive 2 in room 190. You can obviously email me or Rebekah, and we will be more than happy to help you or support you in any way we can. If you are at the university, you can go to the website at the university and you can write RDC and you're going to find our website, which has lots of important information about data and important linkages for you to find what you're looking for as well. So there is lots of information available. So I don't know if Rebekah is back. Oh, yes. Rebekah, are you back?
Hello.
Hi.
I was able to reconnect. I'm hoping that this hopefully solves our tech issues.
Yeah, I went ahead and I said what I was going to say after you finished your presentation. So
perfect. Thank you so much. And I apologize again for the tech issues. Could be within kind of our secure area, being off or farther away from campus just across the street is leading to some internet issues, but I will see if I can share my screen again here.
Your voice is very clear now.
Do you want me to share it?
Would you mind, Stacy? Is that okay?
No, I can totally do that. Just
perfect. Thank you so much.
And then that might not fight your bandwidth issue a little bit. And then you just holler when you're ready for the next slide. I think it's in PDF, but that's okay. It's just here we go. I can definitely do that. You just tell me when you need me to switch screens. How are we there? We okay?
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. Okay. I can see there. Okay.
So I'll scroll through some of this and probably, are we around here?
Yes. Perfect. Okay. Sounds good. So I'll pick up just at the data. And as Stacy said in her message, as well as Rozzet, if you have questions about anything that I covered up until this point, please feel free to reach out. And I can even do mini versions of this presentation one-on-one if you like. So with the data that's available for access within the RDCs, we have over 600 different data sets that are available. So again, these include different types of surveys, as well as administrative data, so health research data, as well as crime reporting data and business data. We also have a lot of data linkages, which just increases the amount of types of research questions that researchers could address within the Regina Research Data Center or Data Center program. With this data, again, with it being a secure access center, we do go through many steps to just protect the confidentiality of our respondents. So this includes removing ID numbers and replacing it with specific survey IDs. Access to this data is only given to researchers who sign a microdata access contract, and you only have access on secure systems. So whether that's within a secure room, like the physical RDC, or with the rollout of the virtual RDC in 2025, access via a remote location on a secure laptop in something like a private office. So no Starbucks browsing or things like that, but a little bit more flexible. Researchers also take more confidentiality and privacy training from Statistics Canada before they're able to access the data. And we also go through different steps in the vetting of output from the center. Again, just an additional step to protect the confidentiality of respondents. You can go to the next slide, please, Stacy. I had mentioned the CRDCN previously. Again, this is kind of our governing body who really does the communication between Statistics Canada as well as the universities, and who Rozzet works quite closely with. So as you can see from the slide, we have research data centers across the country. I believe it's actually more than 33 campuses now, with new branches as well popping up. And access once we go virtual will be even more varied. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. This data came out, I believe, in 2019. So the numbers are a little outdated, but it gives you a nice snapshot of the number of researchers and just kind of the arrangement of different questions and researchers that the CRDCN is a part of. So you can see here that we're part of nearly 2,000 researchers, even more. That's about 5 years later from this being published. And a lot of these researchers are students, and some of them are probably on the call with us here today. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So now that you're aware of the Regina Research Data Center on campus, why would you want to work in an RDC? So our biggest strength of the RDC is really the data. So again, with over 600 data sets and cycles of different data available through the RDC, this spans a wide variety of topics, and our collection is constantly growing. If you are a part of the research listserv at the University of Regina, you probably get emails from us of when new data sets become available. And it's really pretty often. Usually I'm sending out emails once or twice a week. I've also mentioned the many linkages or potential for linkages that StatCan is always adding to the collection as well, with more surveys being connected, including linkages between social surveys and health data being the most common. But of course, we also have that tax files that can just, again, add to the different research questions that can be investigated. The RDC also provides opportunities for students to conduct the kind of comprehensive studies that are even really fully funded professors or labs may not be able to do, with the number of respondents and just the survey length and depth that is collected within the StatCan data. This can be really accessible for students who are maybe doing a thesis or dissertation and are maybe on a shorter length of time or timeline. You can go to the next slide, please. So some researchers on the call may be familiar with public use microdata files. So again, this falls kind of in the middle of that continuum of data access that we showed at the beginning of the presentation. So pump files are available through the university's data librarians. So some of you may be familiar with Caitlin Phillips. There are some important differences, though, between these public use microdata files or pumps and the microdata files available in the RDCs. So just as an example, and this is all pulled from publicly available sources on StatCan's website, you can see that there are differences between the Census 2006 pump version and the microdata files that we have available in the RDC. As you can see, only about 3% of the Canadian population's responses are available in a pump file versus about 6.5 million observations in our microdata file. The variables will also be different across these two files. So within the RDC, you have access to more variables. You also have access to more detail within responses. So as an example, for age within the RDCs, this is often a continuous variable. But when you look at a pump file, these are usually aggregated. So we have more categories. And so the types of questions or research that you're wanting to look at could be better addressed with a microdata file. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. Yeah. So where exactly do you find out which data files you can access in the RDC? So there's a couple different ways that you can go about doing this. The first and probably highest recommended, other than maybe chatting with Rozzet and I, would be to check Statistics Canada's official website. So if you were to type into Google, datasets available in an RDC, usually the first link that will come up is this kind of highest recommended website. There are a couple other options that we'll go through as well today, including the CRDCN's website, but the most up-to-date would be this Statistics Canada website. So Stacey, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, this should be a screenshot of what this website looks like. Perfect, thank you. So right at the top, it'll let you know that you've hit the right place. It's telling you data available in the research data centers. You can go ahead and filter items, and it will show you any information regarding the search topic you're looking for. So the example that I've provided is for the IMDb or the immigration database. By typing in a search code, it'll bring up anything related, including linkages. So you can see that this top one is a linkage of the Canadian Community Health Survey. It's looking at information on health services in Canada linked to immigration database. And what is important here to note as well is that right underneath the link, it usually gives you more detail as to which exact years or cycles are available for access in the RDC. So if you were, for example, to search up the Canadian Community Health Survey, you may see that only up to year 2022 is listed on the RDC data available page. If you were to click the link, it may lead you to a newer release for 2023 or 2024. It's important to go back and just look to this main website so that you can see what's actually available within the RDC. As once Statistics Canada releases the data, we don't automatically get it, as it has to be staged accordingly before researchers can access it within the RDC. And move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the second place that you can look to see which data is available for access in the RDCs is the CRDCN website, along with different resources, so training materials, documentation on the data, and looking at different publications. You can also search for the data here, and sometimes there is additional information, such as code books that are linked on this website. When researchers complete a publication, they can submit it to the CRDCN, and it will be listed on this website as well. So you can take a look through, see what other researchers have published across the network. And then, Stacey, you can go ahead to the next slide. There's also a tab if you were to find an article that you're interested in that says data, and it'll show you which data that research group used to conduct their analysis. Usually then you can go and click on the link for the data used, and it'll give you more information about that specific data set, as well as link you to Statistics Canada's main page for the data. But just be sure to keep in mind that the years that are available will be listed on that very first website, the data available in RDCs. You can go ahead to the next slide. Thanks, Stacey. So now that you know where to go and look for the data sets that are available, we'll just chat through a handful of selected surveys or administrative data that is available for access in the RDCs. And I've picked these ones just based off of either current researchers or previous researchers who have actually used this data in the RDC. So you can go ahead to the next slide. Perfect. So the General Social Survey is quite a popular survey among researchers across the network. We have many researchers who are actually using different versions of the survey currently. And this is an example of our social data. So the GSS was established in 1985, and the program was really designed as a series of independent annual cross-sectional surveys, and each covers a different topic in depth. So you can see the current themes that are currently being collected with the GSS, as well as previous themes that have been collected throughout the years. Just as a side, these comparisons can also be made with the US and UK versions of the GSS, although we only have the Canadian files within the RDC, just another kind of avenue for future research. Within the GSS, currently we have researchers who are using the 2019 cycle, so cycle 34, Canadian Safety, which looks into neighborhood safety, sense of belonging, police presence, type of victimization, abuse, incident reports, and cyberbullying. And we currently have researchers looking into the relationship between childhood victimization and dating violence in Canada, as well as exploring the impacts and initial interventions against Islamophobia. So those are two very different research questions using the same survey. So the possibilities are really endless. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. The second survey that I'd just like to give you a quick snapshot of is the Canadian Community Health Survey, or the CCHS. So the CCHS is collected every year, and we usually get the release about every 2 years within the RDCs. As well as having annual components, there's also focused components, including the very popular Canadian Community Health Survey on mental health, which is really a partnership between Health Canada, the provincial health ministries, and the Public Health Agency of Canada. So this really focuses on looking at the health determinants for Canadians and the population, as well as the resources that are accessible to them. Currently within the RDC, we have many projects that look into this data, including topics for type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, impacts of vegetarian diet, as well as a new project which actually uses the CCHS linked to health administrative data to look into Canadian long-term care residents with mental health illnesses. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. The final data set that I'll just give you a snapshot of is the Uniform Crime Reporting Survey. So this is an example of our more administrative data. So the UCR was designed to measure the incidence of crime in Canada and its characteristics. So this information has been used by policymakers, and as an example of a project in the Regina RDC, they looked at weapons use in Saskatchewan crime. And you can go ahead to the next slide. Again, this is just a handful of the data sets that are available. I just kind of picked out of highlighting some of the projects that are currently happening at the RDC. But as I mentioned, there's over 600 data sets. So if there's something that you're interested in and you have a research question, we can most definitely find something that will probably address that question. So with accessing the RDC, there's 3 main steps. So maybe you've identified that you have a research question that could be investigated using or utilize Statistics Canada microdata files. What you'll have to do first is apply through the online microdata access portal or the MAP. So you'll have to create a MAP account, and this is all done online. You'll submit your RDC proposal using a mandatory proposal template. Usually these proposals are about 5 pages long, with the maximum being 10 pages. So not as onerous as a thesis or dissertation proposal. We also can review these as an RDC analyst, and Rozzet likes to take a look at them as well, just to see kind of what's going on or potentially coming into the RDC, and give you feedback that could help to streamline the application process later on. After you submit your application on the MAP, subject matter then reviews it. They look to see that the statistical analysis can be done within the RDCs, that the variables of interest are available, and they look for things like the level of geography to ensure that confidentiality can still be protected for respondents. Step 2 is a certification process. So here you go through a security status clearance. You become a deemed employee of Statistics Canada. You swear an oath of office and secrecy. You sign a data access agreement or a microdata contract, and you receive training through an orientation on vetting and the different procedures and processes of the RDC. Once your MRC has been signed by your research team and then the director of the RDC program, your accounts are set up, the data is made available, and you can start to work on your analysis with the data itself. You then can work very closely with myself to ensure that the output being produced meets specific survey guidelines to, again, protect that confidentiality of respondents. We work with you to submit a vetting request, where as an analyst, you then go through and make sure that the output matches with those vetting requirements. And then when it has passed those requirements, that information is then sent to you, usually via email, and then it's available for you to use publicly, to use in publications, conference presentations, or really anything that's in line with what you proposed in your initial proposal. And you can go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. So that's a lot of information about the RDC, also broken up by our choppy internet connection. But this last slide here just gives you some key websites that can be really helpful in both understanding the different research projects that are possible in the RDC, which data sets are available, and kind of next steps if you're interested in pursuing this further. So that first there on the left is just the CRDCN website. Again, gives you access to resources, other publications, and just information on the network and RDC program in general. The second is that link to the application page. So this gives you more detailed information as to what exactly it means to become a deemed employee. What are the steps to get a security clearance, as well as what's expected or the different criteria for applications for a student versus a tenured faculty member. The next one is that link to the specific data. So again, this is right on the Statistics Canada website, the most highly recommended and up to date that lists the data available in the RDCs. And that last one there is our specific website for the Regina RDC. So this gives you some information as to our newsletters, our hours of operation, our booking stations, and our contact information as well. So you can reach either Rozzet or myself from that main page on the University of Regina's website. Go ahead to the next slide. Perfect. I've also just included my contact information on this slide here, but again, available to you on our website. And I know Rozzet as well, her contact information is there. We would love to take any questions. If you have questions about data available, would like to set up a meeting to discuss research questions or how the RDC could be made available or utilized in your research, we would love to hear from you. I'll pass it off to Rozzet in case there's anything else that I maybe missed or didn't cover before we take questions.
Thank you, Rebekah. That was wonderful. You didn't miss anything. I just want to add one small thing, whether you or your students, right? If you have a student working under your supervision, a postdoc, please feel free to send them to us if they have questions. We are more than happy to help. In fact, lots of the people we work with are students doing their honors, their masters, their PhDs. And the data from Statistics Canada is perfect, it's publishable, so it will be very, very beneficial for them as well. Thank you. Stacy, can we stop the sharing?
Yes, we sure can.
Yes. Thank you, Sam, for coming. If you guys have any questions for me and Rebekah.
There is one that came in the chat.
Yes. Rebekah, probably you can answer that question.
Oh, yes. Hi, Sarah. So the approval process can vary. Usually we say that by the time that you put in an application on the map, you're probably expecting at least 1 to 2 months before you will get access to the data. There are some cases, depending on if the data is newer or maybe more complicated, that it might be with subject matter for longer. So there are some extreme cases where it might take more than the 1 to 2 months. Usually we suggest for honors projects. I know Rozzet has an honor student incoming for next year, and they're already working on that process now of becoming a deemed employee and getting their proposal in. So the earliest that you can do it, the better. Richard McLennan from the psych department may be a good resource for you to chat with as well, as he often has honor students who work in the RDC. I believe that his most recent, they submit their security clearance and proposal mid-fall, I believe, and they received their access for the winter term.
Thank you, Rebekah. I would add that like the student who's working with me, she came and she wanted to collect specific data. So I started to give her like examples of what she can do. And I mentioned the RDC data and she was very interested. So we immediately started looking into that. And Rebekah was very helpful because she provided the student with various data sets without overwhelming the student, because this is an honors student too. So Rebekah provided the right amount of information, and then the student chose one data set, and now we're going to meet and follow on that, right? So I would believe that the student probably by spring, summer is going to apply and she's going to get her approval to work on the data. So she's going to be able to finish her honors program way before she expected. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I don't see any other questions.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting us to be here. Thank you so much, guys, for attending the session. Rebekah, thank you so much for your presentation. Again, lovely always listening to your presentation.